Hi, I'm Mary Collier. I'm the distributed organizer with Pennsylvania Stands Up, and it is Monday, June 29, 2026 in Harrisburg at the Capitol. So we are here with our statewide housing team. We have renters and homeowners and folks experiencing houselessness from all across the state, from counties all across the state, and we are here to demand, while our senators are negotiating the state budget, that they include affordable housing priorities. We are in a housing crisis. We're in a cost of living crisis. 40% of Pennsylvanians cannot even afford their basic necessities and needs and keep a roof over their heads. And while they're here making deals with each other and before they go on summer vacation, we need them to hear from us. We've been advocating for months and months and months for these priorities, and yeah, we're here to make our demands impossible to ignore. We're fighting for specifically Senate Bill 643, Fair Chance Housing. This would make it so that folks who, even if you have perfect credit, great letters of recommendation, great background checks on everything else, because of maybe a mistake that you made 20 years ago and you served your time, now that they're using all this algorithmic software, they're not even looking at us as holistic people. People are getting denied housing based on prior conviction records. We want to take that barrier away so that folks don't have to relive the cycle of poverty if they're not able to find a house just because of one past mistake. We're also here advocating for the manufactured homeowner preservation package. So manufactured home communities are one of the only affordable home communities options that we have now, and these folks are experiencing unnecessary rent hikes. Private equities coming in, buying the land, raising their rent 2, 3, 4 times. These are, single parents, these are widowers, these are veterans, and we want them to also be able to purchase the land that their home is on, so that they don't have to succumb to private equity raising their rent without actually fixing anything about the community. We're also here to fight for the ending the criminalization of homelessness and the Shelter First Act, their companion bills in the House and Senate, so that unhoused folks have to be provided with resources before they would be criminalized for just living life on the street because they have no other option. So those are some of our main bill priorities here today.
Hi guys, I'm Eden Tinkleman. I am the team coordinator of PA Stands Up. I'm a dues-paying member. Today we are here because housing is a right, not a luxury. Everyone deserves housing, specifically safe, affordable, accessible housing. We are in a housing crisis. We all have bills to pay. We are all one emergency away from being unhoused. That is not right. That ain't right. We are here to demand our senators, especially those from the Urban Affairs and Housing Committee, do something about the housing crisis now. We're looking at you, Senator Kim Ward, President pro tempore of the Senate, David Argel, Frank Ferry, Joe Picozzi, Chair of the Housing Committee, Don Kiefer, and Jarrett Coleman. Today, you're going to hear from several of our dues-paying members and other folks who have joined us because they are worried about the housing crisis. We have our stories, we have our demands. So tune in if you're at home. Please go onto our Instagram or our Facebook, check out our script, and please start calling these senators. Fill out our advocacy form, share, like, repost. And if you're not, become a dues-paying member, please.
We've got vision, we've got plans. Housing committee, take a stand.
Hi, my name is Xiomara Linda Guerrero, and I'm a member of PA Stands Up. This is my housing story. In May of 2022, I received the Berks County Housing Choices program by SAM's Service Access Management. My case manager suggested a landlord who had a 3-bedroom house at $950 a month. To us, my eldest daughter and I, this felt like a dream until initially it felt like a nightmare quickly. Upon first meeting the landlord, we were told that the rent would actually be $1,100. This should have been the first flag, but he had an incredibly thorough 12-page lease stating all expectations for both parties. We thought this was worth overlooking, that first little red flag. A month after receiving the Housing Choice program, we signed our contract lease with Dean Dorset and Service Access Management. We knew and agreed that Dean expected us to take care of home maintenance. There would be a monthly walkthrough inspection, and we would pay each month in cash. Within the first month, we started to see more red flags. We had an issue with flushing the toilet. We could see it coming out the front of the house on the street side. And he said to us that next time we had to pay. Over the course of the next several months, Dean would come by to collect the month each time while I was alone. And each time he would do a walkthrough and scold me about our living space, the hair in the drain, clothes on the floor, stain on the floor, simple things that most people have in their homes. Yet somehow he believed that these were causes for major issues, a clogged toilet or a sink or a rodent infestation. Neither ever happened. About 9 months, I told Dean that I no longer wanted to be alone in the house with him during rent collection and walkthroughs, as it made me uncomfortable. Instead of having a conversation about it, he became upset and told me that we had to move within 30 days. Due to our contract, we were safe for a little while longer, but once the funding ran out, we were served eviction papers. We had to leave within 10 days, and now we have eviction on our record, both me and my daughter. Sometime later, I was called by Berks County Public Housing and went through the whole process only to be told I didn't qualify because of a prior landlord. This is a common practice that leads to homelessness, not only for me, but for others. There are no regulation practices for landlords, many of whom take advantage of systems in place that aim to help people like myself and my daughter. There are no laws in place for eviction ceiling, so people like myself and many others are likely to continuously be denied housing. There are no laws in place for rent hikes or fees, so even when we finally do have a safe place to land, we quickly can no longer afford it. We need bigger, better, and bolder solutions to housing crisis. This is why we are here today, to demand better. We are constituents, your constituents want bills like fair housing, the Manufactured Home Preservation Package, and the Shelter First Act to be passed. Where we are housed, there's truly a difference made, not just in our lives, but in the community, the local economy and environment, and much more. So we're watching you, Kiefer. We're watching you, Argo. We're watching you, Percosi. We're watching all the Senate members, and Ferry and Coleman. This is my housing story. Which side are you on now? Which side are you on?
Hi, my name is Anthony, and I'm a field organizer with PA Stands Up and a member of the statewide housing team. All these beautiful faces here. Heck yeah. I was raised in Scranton. I'm the eldest son of a poor working class interracial family. My parents were teenagers and high school dropouts, but they built a family and they did their best to raise 3 sons. Heck yeah. Despite the odds stacked against us, my standing here today is proof of their success. I did all the things I was taught to do. Go to school, find a dream job, and work hard to feel fulfilled. Despite my best efforts, I did not finish my college education. Despite my best efforts, I never found my dream job. Despite how hard I worked to pay my bills, there was always a bigger bill coming around the corner. I worked hard to make a life worth living, but all I was really doing was surviving. I worked hard, yet in 2018, I was still evicted. My eviction arrived at the lowest point in my life. I lost my job due to untreated mental health illness, which caused me to have such great stress and anxiety. My wife, Heidi, lost her job because she was outsourced to overseas. This fueled a downward spiral of emotional, physical, and financial health. Together, we lost the means to provide for ourselves. We lost, but yet we were still lucky. We were lucky because we were privileged to have family that would support us. We fell back on them. We were able to move in with my parents and start to rebuild the lives we thought we lost. We were lucky we had a structure to fall back on, family as a backdrop against being homeless. We were lucky we had help. We had support systems to catch us when we fell. And once we were able to, after a year of scratching and saving and fighting, we found our own place to live. A lot of luck was involved too. And I know that's a lot of luck that people don't always have. My wife, our 4 cats, Coco Chanel, Carrot Cake, Goku, and Kimchi. We live in a wonderful apartment after this struggle. It wasn't easy, but we've been making do. It's been a journey that has made me want to be involved in this community, especially in a community that helps everyone. That's how I found PA Stands Up in the statewide housing team and became not only a member, but I became a field organizer. I felt such passion about this work that it drove me to step out of my comfort zone, and now I knock on random people's doors for a living. To me, this feels closer to the goals that I talked about earlier. Not surviving, but thriving. And now I can give back to those who are suffering from housing issues themselves. And that's why I'm here, to fight. We demand protection from the parasitic developers who see housing as a way to make money, who see the land our homes are on as parcels of profit. We demand protection from landlords who find any and every excuse to raise rent while ignoring the broken furnace in the middle of the winter. We demand protection from being forced to pay outrageous security deposits on top of first and last month's rent. And we demand protection from rental rejection due to prior mistakes that came about only because we tried to survive in a system that doesn't want us to survive. We demand that housing be treated as a human right. If you share this demand and you want to make an active change where you live, please join us. Join us. We call on you to join PA Stands Up and play a part in building a society that everyone can benefit from. We need an equitable world, and we need you legislators to actually do your jobs that people put you in there for. We demand that you use the power that we gave you to protect us from the people that are giving you power now. We make these demands because we all want to have human dignity. That's all we want to do is live productive lives.
People need homes. What will you do? Housing committee, we're looking at you.
Hi, my name is Holly, and I'm a member of PA Stands Up. This is my housing story. A few years ago, my life split in two. I was facing a domestic situation that forced me to leave my home and find a safe space for my daughter and I. I was working full-time as an administrative assistant at a local healthcare system in northeastern Pennsylvania. They were a respected employer, and it was a job I was super grateful of, but even with a steady paycheck, I could not afford a home for my daughter and I. I remember trying to figure out, where do I go next? While staring at my phone, trying to figure out where to even begin. Who do I call? What resources even exist for someone like me? How do I keep my daughter safe when I can't even secure a roof over our own heads? I was heartbroken by what I have just gone through, and then heartbroken all over again when I realized that working full-time still did not give me enough to be self-sustaining. I was doing everything society tells us to do. I was working, I was trying, I was rebuilding, and yet I could not afford a safe place to live. And I know I'm not the only one. In Luzerne County alone, as of July 2025, more than 5,000 individuals and families are stuck on housing waiting lists.
That is not right.
And that doesn't even include the waiting list to get on that waiting list, okay? 5,378 people exactly, all waiting for something as basic as a safe and stable place to live. Across Pennsylvania, the people who actually keep our communities running, including nurses, teachers, first responders, food service workers, are living the same exact story, and that's a shame. The average essential worker earns between approximately $30,000 and $45,000 a year, but to afford a modest two-bedroom apartment, a household needs at least $50,000. $50,000. The National Low Income Housing Coalition calls this the housing wage, which is $27.83 an hour. You need to make that in Pennsylvania. That is nearly 4 times more than the state minimum wage. This is not just a personal crisis. It is a statewide economic crisis. Healthcare systems in Allentown, Reading, Philadelphia are losing nurses to states where housing is a lot cheaper. School districts cannot recruit teachers because educators cannot afford to live near their classrooms. That is a fact. Emergency services from Erie to Lancaster are understaffed because first responders are commuting from distant communities. It makes no sense to me. How do you do that to them? How do we expect them to take care of us if we can't take care of them? Even the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, which is not a radical organization, has said clearly that workforce housing is a top competitive issue. Employers know they cannot attract or keep workers when those workers cannot afford to live there.
It ain't right.
It's not. My story is just one of thousands. Through my volunteer work as a director with the Susquehanna Warrior Trail, I was offered an amazing opportunity to join a healthcare system based in Baltimore, not even in Pennsylvania, okay? That role provided me the stability I needed to secure housing on my own, begin rebuilding my life with a stronger foundation. And since then, I have maintained a stable home, continued my education at Luzerne County Community College as a part-time student, was inducted into the Kappa Beta Delta Honor Society for accredited business programs. And then later, I was appointed president of the chapter and honored with the Andrew V. Stevenson Scholarship. During this time, I surrounded myself with people who lift me up, like PA Stands Up. And I also graduated from Leadership Northeast, which is a program committed to developing informed, engaged leaders who strengthen and improve communities across northeastern Pennsylvania. During this time, I have been focused on building an organization dedicated to elevating the most important assets of our community, and that's our people. The Susquehanna Warrior Reserve was developed to support and preserve the individuals who make up our communities by widening pathways, bridging gaps to essential resources, and restoring hope, dignity, and resilience. Our work is rooted in creating pathways to maintain and ensure self-sustainability through partnerships and a shared commitment to healing. It is a story of a mother trying to keep her child safe. It is the story of an essential worker priced out of every community they serve. It is the story of a state losing talent, losing stability, and losing people who want to stay but cannot. This is why organizations like PA Stands Up and the Susquehanna Warrior Reserve exist. It is not just a program. It is a response to the lived realities we are facing every single day here in Pennsylvania. It is the lived realities of the people who hold our communities together. And it is exactly why we are standing up. We are standing up because housing is not a luxury. We are standing up because working full-time should mean you should be able to afford a roof over your head. We are standing up because no one should have to choose between safety and affordability. Not me, not my daughter, and not the thousands of Pennsylvanians living this every single day right now. Yes. We are standing up because Pennsylvania deserves better, and because together we can demand it. That's right. We need bold leaders who are actually going to tackle this housing crisis right now.
Yes. Went down to the Senate floor and I took back what they stole from me, and I took back my dignity, and I took back my humanity, and under my feet, under my feet, under my feet, ain't nobody gonna walk all over me.
My name is Jean, and I'm a member of PA Stands Up. This is my housing story. My husband, Mitch, and I are past retirement age, and what should have been a relaxing, enjoyable time of our lives has turned into something much scarier. We're currently on a very tight fixed income. We both receive Social Security, but that doesn't cover the never-ending increase in the cost of living that we're currently seeing. Our rent just increased by $100. Our insurance has increased by 70, our electric bill went up 30, and the cost of groceries, gas, and other necessities has gone up. But the money we receive has barely increased. It's ridiculous. The only way we are making it by is because Mitch still works as a musician and plays in 5 different bands. I would normally also sing to help, but because of various unsolved medical issues, my voice doesn't allow me to sing live anymore. And it's worrisome because we are about hundreds of dollars behind in our bills. In addition to medical issues, I am seeing a nutritionist to help me stay well. She has many wants for me, but one of the hardest things is to keep up with eating enough protein. Protein is incredibly expensive. She would love for me to have several slices of meat on my normal afternoon sandwich, and I can only afford one.
That ain't right.
It makes me sad to even say that. I feel like we're back when we first got married. We have to nickel and dime everything. We're looking at going to more discount stores similar to what there used to be, like dented can stores, just so we can afford to eat. I hate it and how depressing it is to be back in this position. And I'm scared. Our Social Security is said to run out in about the next 10 years. We no longer have money, and what money we did have, we ended up spending on caring for my mom, who is 96. We were able to keep her in a nice nursing home for a year, but that price skyrocketed too. I now have to pay to keep her in a place that's not as nice, and the price of that has skyrocketed too. I now have to pay to keep her in a place that's not nearly as nice, and it breaks my heart. And it has me thinking what's going to happen to me, my husband, our friends. We need bold legislative solutions that help all Pennsylvanians, not greedy billionaires. It's everyday people like us who need help. We need our rent and other bills to stop outpacing our wages. We need Social Security, by the way, which we paid for, and other programs that help the elderly and disabled who can no longer work. We need affordable care homes for people like my mom. We need being homelessness to not be seen as a crime or a moral failing. We need our legislators to act now.
Housing is a right, not a luxury. Pocosi, housing is a right, not a luxury. Pocosi, housing is a right, not a luxury.
Hello, my name is David Griesemer. I just joined this organization. And thank you. So far, it's been absolutely incredible. The people here, what we're fighting for. I couldn't ask for a better time. So it's been amazing. This isn't a story of my own. This is a story of an 80-year-old woman named Eileen, who's a widow living in Red Maples. She is in a manufactured home community in Lower Macungie Township since 1974. She moved from her home in East Cumberland Street in Allentown for a better school district for her children. She worked in retail, a sewing factory, and later in a pharmacy before retiring. She relies on Social Security retirement income. In the past year, the cost of rent has more than doubled. The lot rent no longer includes trash pickup, water, or sewer. The cost of electricity and heating oil has increased as well.
That's not right.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The cost of Medicare insurance and prescriptions has increased. The cost of food, clothing, and other goods has increased as well. And now there's a property tax increase in the East Penn School District. But her income has decreased since her husband died. She spent his life insurance money on medical bills because he lost his long battle with cancer. Her monthly income is only $2,000. Her bills are at least $3,000 a month. Soon, her money will be gone. There's no money for home and auto repairs as well. She darns socks, men's clothes, and wears old ill-fitted clothing. She sits on worn, broken furniture. She remains in the home where she raised her children to be near the bank, stores, pharmacy, doctors, hospitals, and her daughter, who is her caregiver. Outside her home, the landscape has changed, with homes and businesses where the cornfields and wetlands used to be, but inside is like a time capsule. Aline fears the property owners will continue to increase the rent until she can no longer afford to live there. She cannot afford to move somewhere else. She's afraid that a manufactured home park will be sold. Many residents voice similar concerns and are afraid to complain. They're at the mercy of the landlord who lives in New York. Absolutely. He might sell to Air Products or somewhere else, and everybody in the community will be homeless. Aline was hoping to age in place for her remaining years, in her home with her memories, but unfortunately, now she lives in fear.
Hello, I'm sharing the story of Adele Morgan. After the 2008 crash, she spent a year being homeless in northeastern Pennsylvania, and it was no picnic. Living outdoors through PA winter is not an easy task. If you know anything about northeastern Pennsylvania winters, it is that they're harsh, unpredictable, and multiple days of negative-degree weather, resulting in over a foot of snow. She has personally been a serious backpacker since she was a teenager, and thank God for that. Because of the wilderness skills, she was able to survive the winter. Not only was affordable housing unavailable, but there was totally inadequate shelter in Lackawanna County.
That ain't right.
She lives in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and has lived there for 21 years. Over the last few years, she has watched horror as rhetoric towards homeless people has become increasingly violent. Every time she watches the news, it becomes more and more depressed, hearing politicians attacking homeless people, talking about sweeping folks and their belongings off the streets, thinking of losing everything in the 2008 crash. When she could no longer tolerate this, she joined PA Stands Up and found a way to the statewide housing team. She wants to share the system works for us and not against us. We need our state government to act on the housing crisis. This means bold solutions like banning rent gouging, removing barriers for housing assistance, and expanding tenants' rights and protections. I hope you find inspiration from these words and stand up for your constituents. When we stand together, we can make a difference.
Which side are you on now? Which side are you on? Houses crumble and bills rise, but you don't hear us fall. 'Cause billionaires keep paying you. Does it weigh on you at all? Does it weigh on you at all?
Hi, my name's Kaylee. I'm a field organizer in Northeast Pennsylvania. I went to 10 schools in 13 years while I was in K through 12, sometimes even switching mid-school year. My dad, right over there, was the assistant manager at Rent-A-Center and worked there most of my childhood to provide for our family. He got moved to whichever store needed him most, so I lived as central as Rintown and as north as Scranton. My whole life, whenever someone was asked me where I'm from, where my home is, it's Northeast Pennsylvania. While I didn't have the stability in school that most kids have, my parents made sure that I was always in Scouts and that we had a constant connection to community work. They would pay a whole year's rent up front to save a month or two. Despite having to move around so much, I always felt secure because my parents found ways to provide for us. When we moved to our final rental apartment in Scranton in 2012, my parents were able to find a 3-bedroom apartment that allows pets for $850 a month. When we got to Scranton, I became really angry with my parents because I finally had the stability that I needed, but I felt like I was too late to capitalize on it. I was 10 years old. But I held that against them for a really long time, and I became really angry and depressed. I developed an eating disorder at 12, just so that I could feel like I was in control of anything in my life. From 14 to 20, I wanted to prove to my parents that they were just selfish and that they weren't actually trying to provide the stability that my brother and I craved our entire lives. I went to college to study law and sociology, hoping to understand the kids who were like me, who slipped through the cracks and felt like the world didn't see them. I wanted to be a lawyer to help the most vulnerable, but college is expensive. I double majored, I worked a full-time job, a part-time job, a work-study job, and I was very involved in my campus. I paid most of my tuition through a payment plan, and I took out loans to cover the housing cost. When I applied to be an RA on campus, it felt like this is the way for me to get the college experience. This is what I need to do. But then, while I was in college, my boyfriend at the time was kicked out of his home by his abusive stepfather, and he did not have stable housing. So he would stay with me during breaks, and when I had to go in for the RA training, we asked every single person for permission for him to also be allowed to move in early. They never replied to us, so we traveled from Pennsylvania to Rhode Island with the intention of him sleeping in the car in Rhode Island in January. I couldn't do it, so I snuck him into my dorm, and I lost my job. I had to take out private loans to pay for the housing that semester, and I ended up sleeping on the floor of my friend's dorm. We decided that it would be cheaper next semester to get an off-campus apartment so we could split rent, and I worked to graduate a year early so that I didn't have to take out any more loans. My boyfriend felt so bad he dropped out of college to support me in my education because his dean told him he was unable to hold a job and graduate with architecture. Shame. We moved back to Scranton, and now I live in a 2-bedroom, 3rd-floor apartment with 4 adults working full-time so that we could afford our total monthly rent of $1,400. This doesn't include any utilities. All additional income that my now fiance has goes towards student loans that we had to take out, totaling over $40,000. I did not go to law school because I couldn't put my family in more debt. And 2 years later, when I lost my funding for my master's in social work program, I dropped out for the same reason. I'm getting married in December. I want to be able to get a home with my husband. I want to start our family. I want to be allowed to provide the stability for my kids that I craved. I want building a life and a family to not be an unattainable dream that I have to continue putting off. I want a life where I don't need several roommates well into my adulthood just to get by. I am supporting these bills because I want a world where families do not continuously have to put themselves in dangerous situations just to keep their house.
Yeah. Lord, housing is a right, not a luxury. Kiefer, housing is a right, not a luxury.
Hello, everyone. My name is Viola. I am a fully disabled service-connected veteran. I left the Navy in 2019. It wasn't by choice. I got married and married mill to mill, which most Navy women do. I ended up getting divorced, which most Navy women do. I became a single mother, and active duty military life does not work together. So, freshly divorced, freshly discharged with an honorable discharge, armed with almost suspiciously good credit of around $800, paid off my car, my daughter and I, and Caesar, we moved back to northeastern Pennsylvania. Then reality arrived. Between my divorce, my daughter's medical bills, and the loss of active duty pay and benefits, that impressive credit score quickly became a distant memory. I knew I was giving up a steady paycheck and excellent health care, but I didn't fully appreciate just how expensive civilian life would be. When I moved into my townhouse, rent was $900 a month plus utilities. At the time, I was attending Marywood University full-time while also completing a full-time internship at 40 hours a week. My income consisted of VA disability compensation and my GI Bill benefits. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is that the GI Bill magically covers everything. It does not. Yes, it provides a monthly housing stipend, but it does not pay your rent directly. It doesn't buy groceries, it doesn't cover childcare, or magically make inflation respect your service. If only. After earning my social work degree from Marywood, I accepted a position with the city of Scranton. Like many veterans, I hope to use my VA home loan benefit to buy a house. What I didn't realize was that qualifying for a VA home loan and finding a home in Scranton that met the VA requirement are completely different things. As anyone who is familiar with Scranton knows, our city is so beautiful but full of very old historic homes. Unfortunately, many of the homes within my budget needed repairs. I loved that fact. The VA home loan did not. They prevented me from purchasing many homes because they were not passing VA inspections. I did qualify to buy a house, just not one that the VA was willing to finance. So I stayed where I was, returned to school to pursue my master's degree. Then my rent went up $300 via text message. The explanation was simple: the market. I genuinely loved my home, but it came with significant problems. Most tenants don't mind paying higher rent when the property is well maintained. Unfortunately, whenever I raised concerns about repairs, the response was usually some variation of, if you're not happy, you can just leave. The heating system belonged in the museum, and to keep it running, I regularly had to purge it and carry a bucket of water up and down the stairs. I know that I look great, but I spent a few weeks in the hospital at NYU, had 2 cardiac events, and have a cyst on my brain. At first, carrying the water up and down stairs was only occasional. It was an inconvenience, but it wasn't tragic. Eventually, if we left the house for a few hours, the heat would shut off, and Caesar was home. He's little, and he would be freezing. Nothing says modern housing quite like having to manually perform maintenance on your heating system. So I ended up trying to find a place. I was able to understand the privilege that I had because I still had an income coming in. My mother is also a veteran, so she was there to be able to help me, but she lives 30 minutes away. Due to my social media presence, I was able to find an apartment, but I also had to buy a car. Before this, I was a faint risk, and I was not able to drive. So my car was paid off before I got out the Navy, and I ended up having to buy a car. I met another veteran who died, and his dad sold me his car. So I bought a car. I also had to get a storage unit. The storage unit started out at $130 when I first rented it. It is now $233 a month. Luckily, I do not have a car payment, but I have rent and I have a storage payment. I am so privileged to even be able to be standing here, and I know that so many other people in my situation ended up in shelters. There are no women's shelters in Lackawanna County. There's no emergency shelters where I can take my daughter right now overnight and stay. There's no day shelters where I'm allowed to take her as well. There is a youth shelter that is not 24 hours, and the youth shelter does not allow little kids or adult parents. We need housing. This is a crisis.
Hey, COVID! People need homes. What will you do? Housing committee, we're looking at you. Hey, Ward! People need homes. What will you do? Housing committee, we're looking at you. Are you going to the floor? They sold us out. They didn't protect our
was really powerful for us all to be singing together. We know that songs have such a long history in social movements. When we sing together really loud, we can show a sense of unity while still remaining nonviolent. And so we sang a couple different songs today. We alternated between chants, and we have people of all races, classes, ages, from all across the Commonwealth, and we're all here today saying the same thing, that we're in this crisis, and we're going to be the ones to make our voices heard and let the people know that we're paying with our taxpayer dollars, that they need to listen to us. So we did some drop-in visits with some legislators. We've also had multiple lobby days and lobby meetings leading up to this point. Some of the things that we're hearing are that we can't do rent control for one community because it would be unconstitutional, because we live in a free market capitalist society. So God forbid we have rent control for the manufactured homeowners, which is so ridiculous. It sounds like our priorities are becoming bargaining chips in the budget. And we have our eye on these folks. Some of them are up for election in November. Voters are not going to forget that. So we have our eye on them, and we're going to see what comes out of those budget negotiations. I know that the only thing that has made a difference in history is when working people come together, when they impose costs on targets, when they make their demands impossible to ignore. We learn in history books that it's been one person over here, one hero, or Lyndon B. Johnson just signed the Civil Rights Act, but it's actually because there were hundreds of thousands of everyday people who decided to be brave. Like, we are the heroes that we've been waiting for. It starts with one conversation. It starts with curiosity. It starts with taking a risk, doing something you've never done before, talking to other people in your community, and bringing your voices to the decision makers that we put in power. There's a lot of people here. Today was their first action. There's a lot of people here that are new to our team that are starting to get involved. And we're just going to keep growing, keep building people power. One day, we're going to fill all these offices with all of us.